Well, my name is Matt Peterson. I've been drug-free for nearly 5 years now. November 12th of 2013 was the last day that I put, any sort of drug into my body. I didn't do any of it alone at all. My story starts back when I was in 7th grade. I was at church and I was running across Dixie Highway over in northern Kentucky, and I was hit by a church van while I was crossing the street. I was sent to the hospital. I didn't break any bones, luckily, but I was prescribed, some pain medication for, the pain that I was in. And that's not originally where I got addicted. That's just where I was introduced to opiates. A few years later, I ended up getting my wisdom teeth taken out, and I was again prescribed Vicodin. And that's really what kicked it off. I was a senior in high school, about ready to go to Northern Kentucky University, and I was young. I was the first person out of my group of friends that ended up with their own apartment, so naturally it became the party spot, and everything just kind of escalated. I started off with the pills by just buying them on weekends, every once in a while thing, just because I enjoyed the way they made me feel, and combining those with alcohol and pot, it was just an incredible feeling. I was completely uneducated about what opiates could do to me. Back in school, I'm sure you're familiar with the DARE program that they had in elementary school and middle schools and whatnot, just say no, and that was about the extent of my education when it came to drugs. And unfortunately, that's not the way that it goes anymore. The opiates completely took over. Like I said, it went from an every once in a while thing, just partying, and it escalated to an everyday thing. And before I knew it, I was addicted. And some mornings I would wake up without any pain medication, and I would feel sick, and I had no idea why. I didn't know that I was in withdrawal. I didn't know that was detox. I didn't know anything about what was going on. I just thought I felt sick. And I eventually figured it out. And to prevent that, I just kept going. I just kept using. I was buying them off the street, and then, I wised up a little bit, and I had my experience of me getting hit by the church van, back in 7th grade. I had that kind of as an excuse, so I developed back pain just out of nowhere. My back didn't really hurt, but I had the experience. Nobody's going to question the fact that my back hurts because of the accident. So I started off just going to my primary care physician. He would prescribe me some temporary pain medicine, just to get me through. And then I just kept climbing the ladder. I went from the family doctor to hospitals to spine specialists to all the way up to pain management. And I kept getting more pills and stronger pills each time. It was incredible. And then one day, I don't know, I just decided that I didn't want to do it anymore. I was afraid, I guess. I grew up in a great family. My father was a pastor of a Southern Baptist church. I'm an only child. My mother was very involved with the church, playing the piano and being in the choir. I had no reason at all to be doing this to myself or to my family. So I fessed up. I came clean. I told my parents that what I've been doing, and treatment wasn't really very available, and it wasn't as it just wasn't as available as it is now. So the only thing we needed to do was to go to the hospital. And after talking to a social worker, she asked me all sorts of questions about my drug use. Have I had thoughts of harming myself or suicide or anything like that? And I did. I was still young at the time, and who hasn't? So after speaking with them for just a few minutes, they didn't think twice to admit me to the psych ward. So I ended up in the psych ward. It was not my intention to do that whatsoever, but that's where I landed. And I did my best while I was there to prove to the nurses and to the parents and to the doctors just how wrong they were about me. They misdiagnosed me. I thought I made a mistake and I overreacted to my, pain pill use, and I just wanted out of there. So after 5 days, I got out of the psych ward and went home to my parents. My dad picked me up from the hospital, and we agreed that since most of my friends used drugs, I needed a new phone with a new phone number. And so my parents gave me some money so I could go to the mall and get a new phone number. That way, that part of my life was just completely over. And well, I went to the cell phone dealer, bought a phone, and when I went in there, the phone I wanted was around $200, but they had a sale going on that day that I went in. All I had to do was pay tax on the phone, and I could get the phone. So I did that. I left with the phone as proof that I went in one pocket, and then I had about $150 left over in my other pocket. And just within 8 hours of me leaving the psych ward, promising to never do pills again, I took the rest of that money and called up my dope boy and got some pain pills. As it progressed, I just kept finding new connections. I ended up talking to this dude and hanging out with him. He had cancer, and if I bought his prescription of Oxycontin for him, he would split it with me. So it went from Vicodin to Percocet, and I ended up on Oxycontin, and I was getting a good amount of them for buying his script for him. And well, one day he passed away, unfortunately. I miss the guy now, but at the time I was really resentful at him, like, he's dead, now what am I going to do? So I made the financially mature decision to try heroin. My friend Kyle, he's actually the one that I did all sorts of pills and all sorts of partying with him. He's actually the one that originally introduced me to heroin. I cut him out of my life because he was doing heroin, but I ended up exactly where he was. And I reached out to him, and we became partners, I guess. I wouldn't really call us friends. We formed a partnership. I had a car and money. He would get money every once in a while, but he knew the connections. He knew where to go to get the heroin, and so we used each other. And it just kept going. It just kept going. I just started off by snorting it, and then eventually it led to shooting it. My friend Kyle shot it, and he just kept telling me, how dumb I was for snorting it, and how much better it was for me and how much cheaper it would be for me if I started using the needle. So one day we went up there, and I was just ungodly sick. I was in withdrawal, and I put the needle right in my vein and didn't even think twice about it. From there, we parted ways after that because I had my own connections, and my parents, they knew what was going on. They would search my things. I was living in their house, but they would go through my stuff and find my needles and my dope and the little cotton balls or whatever else. And when they confronted me about it, I just ran. I didn't want anything to do with it. They were intruding on my life, and I just wanted them to leave me alone. So little did I know they were doing their own research. Over in Kentucky, there's a law called Casey's Law, which allows you to, it allows your family members or a friend or anyone to have you court-ordered into treatment. And when they approached me with this, it was a weird feeling. It was fear and relief, like just wrapped up in one weird ball of emotion. And I wanted help. I didn't want to be a heroin addict, but I also refused to go through the withdrawal. I just wasn't going to do it. But after talking to my family about it, we agreed to go ahead and go through with it. So we signed the proper documentation, got it back to the courthouse, and I was set up with a court date. At the court date, the judge gave me a certain amount of time that, to get into a detox facility. At the time, there was only one in northern Kentucky, and it was up to me to call every single day to see if there was a bed open for me, which, in my opinion, that's just completely unreasonable to have an active heroin addict call every single day for weeks trying to get into treatment. But finally, after like 3 weeks, I stopped calling, but my family didn't. They kept calling for me. And one night I was sitting out in my parents' parking lot or driveway, and my mom came out, told me to pack up my things. My bed was available, and I had a little bit of dope left, and I did my best to get away from my mother so I could go do the rest of it before I went to detox. I lasted about 18 hours. It was the evening time when I went, and the next morning I woke up, realized the hell that I was in, and I left. I absconded. And since I was court ordered to be there, I now had a warrant out for my arrest. So my parents were the ones that issued the Casey's law, so I couldn't go home because they were just going to call the cops on me. I didn't have any friends. I had a couple partners, from my heroin use, but neither one of them had, their own place to stay. They were couch surfing too. So I had my friend Mikey come pick me up from the detox facility, take me back to my parents' house. They were at work. I broke in through the back window, stole the keys to the car, and took the car, my parents' laptop, and left. From there, I went to the pawn shop, sold the laptop so I could get some dope, went up to the dope boy, and felt better. I did what I needed to do, to get that withdrawal over with. I didn't think that I was now homeless. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a home. I didn't have a family anymore. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know what to do. My only focus was, how am I going to get more money? How am I going to get more heroin? That was my only concern. I lived in the backseat of that car for about a little over 2 months. I bounced around from parking lot to parking lot, just trying to find the safest place. I spent most of my time at the hospital parking lot. I don't know why, but I figured that'd be the safest place to be. But one night, it was an extra bad night. I was just feeling, it was just an emotional evening. I was borderline in detox, from not having dope or anything. So I wrote my parents a goodbye letter and put it in the back of the car. And then I went to the grocery store and stole a few boxes of sleeping pills. And I put them in a cigarette pack, and I kept those sleeping pills on me at all times. And I decided, when the cops eventually found me, and I knew they would, that I would take all those sleeping pills and just end it. And one evening, that's exactly what happened. The cops showed up. I was staying in a hotel parking lot, and apparently there was somebody breaking into cars. And when the cops pulled into the parking lot, they just, by chance, stopped me and talked to me about it to see if I knew anything. And once they ran my identification and, saw that I had a warrant for my arrest, they sat me back down in the car. And as soon as they turned their back for whatever they did, I popped every single one of those sleeping pills. There's probably about 60 or 70 of them. And that's really the last thing I remember from that. It was a Sunday night when I was arrested. I was taken to Boone County Jail. And then I woke up Wednesday morning in Kenton County Jail. They had me in the hole on suicide watch. I didn't have any clothes. I didn't have a bed or a mattress. One of the guards woke me up Wednesday morning and asked me if I knew where I was. And I replied with, yeah, I'm at the hospital. And then he held up that pink Kenton County Detention Center jumpsuit. And I was like, what is going on? And it was a weird feeling because I was mad because they didn't do anything to try to save my life, but I was also mad because I wasn't dead. I don't know, it was just a really confusing time for me, but I sat in jail in the hole for 8 days until I was finally put into the general population, and I was there for about a month. Went to Boone County to finish my sentence there, which was one more week, and then I got ordered to go back to treatment. So from there I went to a long-term men's inpatient facility over in northern Kentucky. And I had 2 hours to get from the jail to the rehab facility, and it was the fastest 2 hours of my life. Just rushed home, ate some food, and got my hair cut, packed up some stuff, and I got there. So we walked into the lobby of the men's inpatient facility, and The guy that was doing my intake, his name was Jacob Fox, and he was one of the peer mentors. He was an awesome guy. He made me feel right at home. But while I was sitting there, I heard a voice, and I look up, and my friend Kyle is standing there in the lobby just smiling at me. And I had no idea that he was there, but he had been expecting me because they had me on the new client board or whatever. So he knew I was coming. But, I was just so relieved to see him. He was my best friend from, growing up. We knew each other for like 15 years at this time. And I don't know, we started our drug use and our partying together. We spent years doing it, and now we're going to get sober together. Like, it was just awesome how God works, But he showed me the ropes and hooked me up with the right people in the rehab facility. And, we just had a good time, It was just like one big hotel room for a bunch of male drug addicts. It was incredible. And then his time came. He got towards the end of the program and began the process of moving out. And once he did, he just completely disappeared. I didn't know where he was. He stopped talking to me. Yeah, he just disappeared. And it's not the first time that we saw this happen. When it did, it was always the same reason, relapse. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew that that's what he did. Then just about a month later, my time came, and I went through the process of moving out. And the day I moved out, my grandfather passed away. And then, so that was hard. The transition home was hard enough, and then adding the loss of a family member on top of that. One thing they didn't teach me was how to successfully grieve, So that was tough. And then 2 weeks after that, I found out that I had a son who was born while I was in the rehab, and he was 6 months old at the, once I got out. And 2 weeks after we found out about my grandfather passing away, we also found out that my son was born with 2 holes in his heart and was going to have open heart surgery. We found out by accident. He kept getting pneumonia, so we took him up to Children's Hospital, and they actually found the holes in his heart on accident. They were looking at his lungs because of the pneumonia. And when they were checking his lungs and his breathing, they heard a murmur. And it was a shock to us. And, Children's Hospital was amazing, though. They did everything they could for us. They made sure that we felt like we were at home. The downside to it, though, was it's located just 2 blocks over from where I was getting my heroin from. So, being fresh out of rehab, having just lost my grandfather, and now having to deal with my son having open heart surgery at such a young age, and being newly sober, I didn't really know what to do. I just tried to do my best to be the father that I hadn't been for my son for the first 6 months. And the surgery went fine. He's just a normal little kid now. And but while he was in recovery, I decided to go to the ice cream shop, just up the street from Children's Hospital. And while I was there, a dope boy hollered at me and offered me a sample. This was the first time that I encountered. It's the first time I've been in that type of situation, since I had gotten clean. And I was proud of myself because I didn't take it. I told him, hey, I've got almost a year clean. Thanks though. Where were you, a year ago? But after that, it never left my mind after that. And I began to obsess over it. And within 24 hours, it just dawned on me that all I got to do is be a white guy in Cincinnati and I can get it. So I went out searching for it, and sure enough, it was maybe an hour or 2 of looking. I found it, and I had relapsed. I went out for about another year, and luckily, God showed up in the form of a police officer for a second time, and I was shooting up in a parking lot, and a cop watched me do it. And as soon as I finished, the cop walked up to the car and said, "All right, where's it at?" And I was caught. I was busted. I didn't put up a fight or try to talk my way out of it. I just told him where it was and put my hands behind my back. I did thank him, though, for allowing me to finish my shot before he decided to take me to jail. So we went to the Campbell County Jail, and my time there was, I mean, it was all right. You know, the detox was pretty bad this time, because the first time I slept through the withdrawal because of taking all those sleeping pills. This time I actually had to feel it, and it was really bad. It was really bad. But I got out, and it was November 11th of 2013 I was arrested. So my official sobriety date is November 12th of 2013. And that cop saved my life. But, I mean, now I was sober, and I still had life to deal with. I've got 2 kids now. I got to pretty much just start over. Like, I spent my entire life, or at least half of it, partying and using drugs and not taking care of myself or doing any responsible acts of any kind. You know, I wasn't working, I wasn't doing anything, so I had to start completely over. And eventually I ended up in a sober living house. And actually, let me back up. I met this girl, right, and she is awesome. You know, I finally got a job. I went to Bonefish and became a cook there. It was my passion. I love to cook. And it was my first week there, and I was looking through the expo window, and there's a server that walks by, and I nudged my cook next to me like, "Who is that?" He's like, "Oh, that's Megan." I was like, "Dude," but he said that she was taken and not to even try. Little did I know, she was on the other side nudging the server next to her like, "Who's the new cook?" You know, and the rest I mean, we ended up getting together. About a year into it, we parted ways, and you know, my whole world just was demolished because of that. So with nowhere to go, I ended up moving into a sober living house, and Kyle is there. He's the manager at the sober living house that I ended up moving into. Not only that, we were roommates, and so again, here we are. We're sober. You know, we're living life. You know, started hitting the gym and feeling better about ourselves. We were both working and handling the stuff that we needed to handle and actually being productive members of society. And then he started to get a little distant. I had a suspicion, you know, that he had relapsed, but he never just up and told me. A couple weeks into it, he finally did. We went to a pizza joint and got some pizza, and while we were sitting there in the parking lot eating it, he fessed up and he admitted everything that he was doing, and like he begged me like not to leave him because he didn't want to. He knew where he was going to end up, and he did not want to get back there. That night, I had to work, and I put him on hold, and I said, "Look, I'm off the next 2 days. Just hang in there. Go back to the house, watch a movie. You know, just stay occupied, and we'll hang out for the next 2 days." And that was the last conversation I had with him. That was a Sunday night when we had that conversation, and the owner of the sober living house and myself, we found him dead in the back of his van in a Walmart parking lot. And I mean, it was, I don't know, devastating to say the least. After we found him, like we were close to the point where like his parents would just invite me over to eat whether he was there or not. You know, we were family. And so I, with 2 Fort Wright police officers, drove to his parents' house so I could tell him. And I couldn't even get the words out. His dad was sitting in a chair, you know, just like I am, and I was standing at his feet, and he had to ask me. He said, "He's not dead, is he?" I said, "Yeah, dude." That's all I could get out. And I don't know what was worse, finding Kyle or the look on his dad's face when I told him I found his son. But it was definitely a lesson for me. I've promised myself and his parents to never put another addict on hold again, because this is a feeling that I don't want. It's a regret that I don't want, and I refuse to do it again. But since then, that's kind of become my my fire, I guess. That's really what lit the spark under me. After that happened, I switched my major in college and decided to go in for addiction counseling. And so I graduated from Cincinnati State with my addiction counseling certificate, my Associate of Arts degree. I got my CDCA through the state of Ohio, and I'm now a current student at Northern Kentucky University for psychology. And I want to use that to, help in any way that I can. I work at a treatment facility. I'm writing a book about Kyle's life, my life, and my views and opinions about addiction. Different treatment options. I'm literally trying to do everything that I can to end this. Like, this is such a stupid problem to have. It's just baffling that something that ruins your life is so, I don't even know the word. Like, even after 5 years, like I can still feel the feeling. Like, while I'm writing my book, I can feel what heroin did to me, good and bad. Like, when I'm writing about, the process of getting high and the way when I'm describing the way it makes me feel, like, I can actually still feel it. Like, it's just crazy what it does to you, and it's very misunderstood. And I don't know. It's a problem that we shouldn't be dealing with, and I just want to do anything I can to do my part. So people don't have to die like Kyle did. We're losing people in record number. I read an article the other day that there's been more people that's died from the heroin epidemic, I think it was in 2017 or 2016, than Americans died in Vietnam. That's insane to think about. But today I'm, like I said, I'm a graduate, and I'm a student, I'm an author. I'm a success story. I'm a miracle. Recovery is possible. Whether it's a 12-step program or inpatient or outpatient or medical assisted treatment or complete abstinence, or church. There's different ways to recover for each person. There's no one way to recover. What I can tell you that worked for me the most was, personally, getting back into the gym, because that helped me physically and it boosted my confidence. It made me feel better about myself, with my self-esteem and everything. And then I surrounded myself with good people. The support that I found from other people going through the same stuff has carried me through so many things. It's unreal. Like the death of Kyle, or my kid's heart surgery. They were there for me through that. The breakup that I went through, there's so many hands, reaching out for each and every one of us. Like, you just got to grab one, and that's it. And if you don't feel like you have any hands, you feel free to reach out to me. It's what I do. I'm the chairman of a nonprofit organization over in Northern Kentucky. It's called People Advocating Recovery of Northern Kentucky. So you can feel free to, look us up on Facebook. It's People Advocating Recovery, Northern Kentucky. So like our page, reach out to us. We'll get back to you. We've got resources. We've got contacts. We can do anything that you need us to do. If you just need to talk to somebody, we'll talk to you. If you need treatment options for your loved one, we've got those. If you need support groups for yourself, we've got those. Just reach out. There's plenty of people going through the same thing. So, with that said, I hope that if you're battling addiction yourself, there's so many treatment options out there. If you're the loved one of an addict, I mean, you've got a lot of resources and a lot of support out there too. You just gotta reach for it, and someone will be there to catch you.